Welcome to part 3 of our live training session here with our Supercharged Honda S2000. In the last tutorial, we got the engine to fire up and run and hold its own idle. This tutorial, we're going to be focusing our efforts on the part throttle cruise area of operation. So we're going to be sorting out our fuel and spark timing, also taking a look at our fuel injection timing and learning how we can calibrate and tune that to further improve economy and throttle response. We have a lot to cover. Let's jump into our live training session so we can get started. Welcome back to our live training session here with our Honda S2000. In our last tutorial, we focused on getting our engine to fire up and run and maintain and hold its own idle. Now we're ready to turn our attention into doing our part throttle cruise area of driving. We want to learn how to optimize both fuel and spark timing, and we're able to achieve that in a relatively easier manner. I'm going to go and show you how I calibrate both fuel and spark timing in part throttle. We're also going to take a look at the end of the tutorial of how to optimize our fuel injection timing a little bit further. We might find some hidden fuel economy and some throttle response in optimizing that injection timing. We'll talk about that again later in the tutorial. Now what we're going to do is fire up the engine and get it to come up to operating temperature. Right now, we can see that it's cooled down between the time I was filming previously and to right now. It's showing here about 118 degrees coolant temp. We want to be about 140, 160 degrees temperature so that we don't have any kind of post-start or warm-up enrichments applying against our main fuel table. If we're doing any calibration in our fuel table, we want to make sure that we have no corrections being applied on top of it. Now, before we do that, I want to discuss something. I brought it up in the last video, this concept, this idea of how we can validate our VE values in our main VE table here in this model mode. Now, these values aren't arbitrary. They're estimating the amount of airflow entering our engine. And I was mentioning, on a 4-cylinder engine, for example, we should see about 3.5 to 4.5 grams per second worth of airflow estimation from the VE value representation in our table here. That's translating the correct amount of estimation of airflow from the main VE table to the link here, and then the link's going to make its adjustments and determine what it needs to send out in fuel mass and convert that into injector pulse based on our fuel injector data. Now, we can figure out, as I was mentioning before, if we have bad injector data or if we just simply need to make adjustments in our fuel table here, if our fuel differences between what we command for the lambda is off from what the measured lambda is going to be from our wideband. So if we're too rich or too lean, we have some kind of an error. Either we have the airflow modeling wrong or we have our injector data wrong. Now, I was mentioning before, jumping back into basics here, that we were taking a look at our air per cylinder estimated grams per cylinder. I was mentioning on a 4-cylinder engine, for example, we should be about 0.12 grams per cylinder. And I was trying to go in and describe it in just a general rule of thumb in terms of the values that we can expect for a 4 or 6 or an 8-cylinder engine. To avoid any confusion, what I've done is created an Excel spreadsheet calculator that it's going to make this a calculation for you to validate if what it's estimating in terms of what's coming from your main V table is accurate or not. So what we're going to do here, let me just jump in. This is the Excel spreadsheet calculator. It's going to be found in the link G4x course packet. You'll find it in terms of all the other Excel calculators. I'm actually going to have a separate tutorial in the training course as well. I'm going to go in and just go through this as well, but I'm bringing it into this live training video just to make sure we're as clear as possible. In order to use this calculator, we're going to enter in the engine speed that you're at. You're going to enter in the estimated air mass that's coming from your estimated airflow right here, the air per cylinder estimated, grams per cylinder. Whatever it's registering here, you're going to enter that in. So you're going to look at the engine speed you're operating at. It's going to be at idle conditions. And you're going to be looking at your air per cylinder estimated. You're also going to enter in the number of cylinders that you have. Because it's grams per cylinder, we need to make sure that it's accounting for this number of cylinders. Now, what we find down here in the estimated air mass grams per second, this is taking a look at all these parameters and then spitting out what the grams per second in terms of the registration is going to be. And then we can find down here, these are the guidelines or the general guidelines to what you can expect for a proper amount of airflow estimation coming from your VE value from your table. What this is going to do is allow us to pick apart, do we have too high or too low of VE value in the table? Okay, if we do, let's correct it if we're finding it's too rich or too lean. And, or is it too rich or too lean because we have bad injector data? Is our injector flow rate scaled wrong, or the injector latency or the dead time values, are those scaled wrong? This will allow you to figure that out. So, for example, if we have a proper VE value and the estimation of air mass here in terms of grams per second is correct at idle, then we know if it's too rich or too lean, the error lies on the injector scaling side of things. Now, if we're finding that if we're taking a look at all of our parameters here and the estimated airflow or air mass is going to be, let's say, higher or lower than the guideline in the per cylinder, whatever you're going to be running. So a 4-cylinder, 3.5 to 4.5 grams per second. If it's outside that range, if it's too low or too high, and our air fuel or the measured lambda is going to be too rich or too lean, then we know it's a fuel modeling side. It's an actual airflow modeling side, and we need to update the values in our VE table here. So these values in the idle area are incorrect and they need to be adjusted. What we're going to do is get the engine to fire up and run again, come up to operating temperature, and at that point, I'm going to just take a look at what the engine speed's at, and I'm going to be taking a look at what the estimated air mass is going to be in terms of the grams per cylinder. We're going to plug it into our calculator and just validate these values in our table here and just make sure 100% if they're accurate or not. So this will be a clear indication if you need to adjust your VE values in your table or if you need to adjust your injector data. Even if your injector data. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.